Good evening, folks. Welcome back to another Monday night live stream. How the devil is everybody? Excuse me. I've just brushed my teeth and something's just been dislodged there. Good evening. How are you doing? Nice to see you all here. Quite a few in, nice and bright and breezy. We'll say hello to the chat in a little bit. We'll let everybody come and settle in and kind of get cozy and get their cups. For those of us on Mug Watch, we've got R2D2 mug tonight with some nice 3 ginger tea in there, as I've got a bit of a sore throat going on today, but I'm sure that'll not stop me having a big chat tonight. So how was everybody's weekend? It sounds like there was a few of you were in Adepticon at the weekend, and that's kind of prompted a little bit of tonight's discussion. I'll get into that a little bit more once we get a few more viewers in, but essentially tonight's chat is about the differences in gaming, and to be fair, the similarities as well, of gaming around the globe. So just what are the little kind of quirky differences between how somebody in the US plays, or we'll come on to that, let me not go too deep into that, how the US sort of gaming sort of community is versus New Zealand versus Australia versus UK versus Holland and Belgium. What do we all do the same, and what are the little differences? So I'm relying on a lot of you tonight to try and help me out and tell me about what your stereotypical kind of gaming communities are like. What are the little things that you do that you don't really see replicated around the world? But we'll get into some of that in a little bit. So let's say hello to a few people who are in the chat. Who have we got? We have got Christian came in there nice and early. Has my channel just frozen there? No, it doesn't. Might just be my screen there. We had Christian in nice and early there. So good evening, Christian. We had Furious George said either the show is an hour out this week or the clocks have changed. I completely forgot to mention that the clocks have gone forward here, which means that for most people this might catch a few out. We might not get quite so many tonight because the time might have changed the things, but let's bear with that one then. We've got Mark in tonight as well. Mark Berracloth. Good evening, Mark. Hope you're well, buddy. We've got Todd in as well. Good evening, Todd. Or good afternoon, Todd. He said it's 4 p.m. in the States and he's recovering from an Adepticon hangover. So we need to find out more about just what went on there. Flying Mammal's in as well. She's doing the washing up. Looking after Sean there, doing the wife stuff. Peter Nicholas says, someone said you had to move the clocks an hour. You don't April Fool me. I also want to hear, good evening, Peter, by the way. Hope you're all having a good day. I also want to hear if you've seen any good kind of April Fools online today, especially around gaming. We've got Jason Coyer in tonight. Good evening, Jason. Hope you're well. Sean there, Skullmonth, has snuck in as well, saying, oi, oh, you who. We've also got Steve Evans in. Good evening, Steve Evans. We've got Raw Gaming in as well. It says, here we go. Good evening, Raw Gaming. Hope you're well, my friend. Sean saying, hey, buddy, don't worry, the riffraff have arrived. Wouldn't be the same without you, mate. Wouldn't be the same without you. We've got Glenn Griffin in saying, evening, Blackjackers. Good evening, Glenn. Randall says, afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Randall. Skullman says, hashtag mugwatch. Love it. We need to get some Blackjack mugs, don't we? We need to try and make them a thing. Skullman says, crystal clear for me, mate. I don't know if is that the sound, everything okay? That's what I like to see. VJ's in, he says, morning, Blackjackers. He said, and sup, Andy. Everything's pretty good, mate. Thanks for asking. Hope you're well over there as well. Tim Kelly's in, he says, all right, Andy and all. Good evening, Tim. We then have hashtag Mountains I'll say that with my teeth in. Hashtag Matt Mountains Mantic Mondays. He says, evening, Black Eyes. Hope you're all well. And Skullman says, had a small freeze, mate, but all good now. Yeah, it seems to be freezing a little bit here. It seems to be streaming okay. I don't know whether it's my screen or what, but we'll keep plowing on. I don't know what the problem is. Internet all looks pretty good as well. Everything seems to be streaming okay. Maybe it's just the gremlins in the system at the minute. I'm sure it'll sort itself out. We've got Steve from Steve Small World in. Good evening, Steve. Hope you're well, mate. We've got Bob Point in, says good evening. Evening, Bob. Andy Smith says, all right, how are you, man? Good evening, Andy. I bet you couldn't see it like that, could you? VJ says, daylight savings there, that explains that. Yes. Did I see something recently? They're talking about taking away daylight savings time completely because it causes, and this wasn't an April Fool's, I saw this about a week ago, that it causes some kind of medical issues. Forget what it was now. Mark says, someone told me they get the Hellboy tracking number in the UK. Was waiting on mine all day and then realised the git set me up. Yes, I did see somebody say something similar, and I think somebody from Mantic had said, it might have been Elvis, was saying that they're still busy shipping out the European ones at the minute, so don't expect it sort of in the next few days. Randall says to VJ, he's all good, he's taking the day off from work and recovering. I'm assuming, Randall, you must have been at Adepticon as well, were you, buddy? Sean saying, April Fool's Gremlins playing up. Yeah, I hope it sorts itself out. We could do without that tonight, couldn't we? We could do without them. It does say that, it says the stream's a little bit bad, but we'll see what happens. What's the worst that can happen, eh? It all goes black and the screen goes off. Nick says, evening, Andy. What's the best cheese? Best cheese? I'm quite partial to, the ones with kind of like cranberry and stuff in, like flavoured cheese. There you go. Reluctant Artie's in. Evening, mate. He says, so you finally caught up to Canadian time. He says, cheers, everyone. Sadly, it's my turn to make Monday supper. I'll be in and out. I appreciate you dropping in anyway, mate, so thank you very much. Got Peter Nicholas says, EU only, I believe. Is that what it was? I knew I'd read it somewhere. I suppose with Brexit and stuff, we'll escape that one, then, eh? That just means there's even more time zones to worry about. And Skullmunch is saying, yeah, they want to get rid of daylight savings. I knew I'd read it somewhere. VJ's asking Randall how was Adepticon. He's super jealous. Bob saying he's all good here in Shropshire. Good to hear it. Artie says the stream is fine his end. Let's hope it keeps up. There's a little kind of thing here that tells me whether it's kind of bad, average or good, and it's kind of showing red at the minute, but it looks like it's streaming okay. It's just gone good. So whatever was playing up with it seems to have caught itself up. Flying Mammal says, oh my god, 1,000 Andys are back. They better not be. Please tell me you're kidding. I hope that's an April Fool. Raw Gaming says, Marmite cheese. We've got Joel Wrigley in as well. Good evening, Joel. How are you doing, mate? Says, Shropshire Blue is the best cheese. Ask Bob. Something you need to tell me, Bob. And Randall saying to VJ, he got lots of gaming in, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Sounds like the story of my life, mate. And yeah, I think it must have been April Fool there. Johnny Jambo, good evening, mate. He says, evening, Andy. He says that the EU are canning daylight savings and we already signed up to it, Brexit or not. Yes, that would not surprise me, buddy. Peter says, Wednesday tale for me. VJ says the stream seems fine, and Flying Mumble says hashtag April Fools. Cheeky bugger. Todd saying they're talking about getting rid of daylight saving times here in the States as well. I'm sure I'm not entirely sure why it's there. I always remember it kind of thinking that we're just getting into gaming now, aren't we? I always remember thinking it was something to do with kind of like being dark when kids went to school on a night, but I'm sure there's a far more technical reason for it than that. Bob says, Shropshire Blue, a man's cheese. I don't think I've ever had it, actually. Nick says, sorry guys, but cheddar is the best proper English cheddar. And Luke says, look at that Boca creamy. How's it? Yeah, I forgot to mention that. So, with the help of my a mixture of my Patreon supporters in my work giving me a bonus this year, I've spent a bit of money on bits and pieces, and one of them things has been a new lens for my camera. So as you'll see, I might be nice and clear and in nice focus, but behind me is all blurred out. That's because of this lovely new lens. After a bit of a chat with Luke there from Luke's APS, he let me try his lens on my camera. I was like, yeah, I'm having one of those. And here we are. So, hope everybody likes the new look. This is kind of what I'll be using for a lot of these kind of talking head type videos. The idea is, it still keeps a little bit of kind of interest in the background, but it doesn't kind of draw you away too much to the point where you're going, oh, so what's that game? What does that say? Well, that's a nice box. And then you stop listening to me. You start drifting off and looking to see what's in the background. Skullmunch is saying, sup Luke? Peter Nicholas says, I don't enjoy man's cheese. Skullmunch is saying, still need to try biscuit tea. And Luke is saying, bloody farmers. Yeah, the only cheese I like is Death God. That's what he says there. We've also got, let's have a look. We've got Hendrix just come in as well. Good evening, Hendrick. He says, sorry he's a bit late. Don't worry about that, buddy. And Flying Mammal says, I miss seeing Hero Quest. It's still there, to be honest, Ruth. It's still on the shelf. It's just above my head. You might even see the reflection of it on the top of my head since I had a shave this morning. And Henrik says, your lens makes you a bit blurple out. There you go, see? Blurpled. Joe says, what's the best thing about Hero Quest? It's got to be the gargoyle, hasn't it? And Luby says, it's all about you. Thank you very much, Lou. For those that don't know, Luby is my wife. She'll be either in the next room or she'll be downstairs giving me some stick here. So thanks for that. Flying Mammal here. Skullmunch says, looks good, mate. Wish you had this lens before I distracted by Aristia. That's cost me a lot more. Yeah, that's it. So what needs to happen now is if anybody wants their game on the shelf in focus, they need to pay sponsorship from now on. Luke saying, best game ever. It's got to be Pickle Rick, isn't it? That's what it is. Flying Mouse is going to stay at our shelves and said, I can just say now, you'll be listening to the videos, but you'll be looking at your own shelves. VJ saying, morning to Luke. And he's told the missus to be look out for biscuit tea. And Joel shouting the broadsword. So, we've got a nice little bunch in now. We've got 32 of you all watching. I very purposefully didn't share this video tonight. Those who are members of the Facebook group will know exactly why. And I also I didn't take into account for daylight savings time, which I completely forgot about. Might throw a few kind of overseas visitors out. So I'm really happy with the numbers we've got in tonight. I wasn't expecting that. So yeah, tonight's subject was kind of kicked off by a post I'd read from Nick Williams, who some of you may know from the Kings of War community. He was over in Adepticon at the weekend. He went over as the UK Clash of Kings champion 2017, I think it was. So he went out as the previous champion. And I think if I remember right, he did see he might pop in tonight, so he might correct me if he's around. I think he finished second in the tournament, so he did a pretty good showing. But he did a post on Facebook basically saying that he thought, he actually said, the point of the post was he was making a bit of a joke about that any scores that you kind of that you get abroad should definitely count in the UK rankings. And there was a bit of a jokey kind of thread about it. But one thing he did then get onto, which was the point of tonight's thread, was about some of the things that he'd noticed about being out in the States, and he's been a few times now, and some of the things that made the different communities out in the States versus the ones in the UK very sort of different, the things that he really liked. Excuse me. And that kind of just got me thinking. We have quite a kind of international flavour of viewers in our live chats on a Monday. So I thought I'd kind of almost put the question to you. I thought I'd use Nick's comments as a bit of a kind of a starting point, really, so I can just get them up on my phone where I've saved the details. As you can see, very prepared. So one of the things that Nick did say was that his words were, you guys, or a decent number of you, he's talking about the American gaming. So if any of you, Americans in there want to either agree or disagree or kind of comment or build on any of these comments, please pop them into the chat and I'll come back and I'll review some of these things. Remember to put at BlackJack Legacy if you want me to specifically kind of call them out or anything like that. So he says that basically the Americans tend to hold a lot of their tournaments in hotels, and ours are generally held in like gaming centres such as Element Games or maybe like church halls or community centres and stuff. And because of this, the American tournaments feel a bit more upmarket. And he's saying like nothing against the stuff like places in the UK, as we have some good venues, but it's not like a big classy kind of 5-star hotel. And I would kind of echo that really. I mean, I'm not saying that our gaming venues are kind of dirty or groggy or anything like that, but they're certainly not kind of convention centres. They're not sort of they're not 5-star hotels really, as kind of as Nick really said. I've often considered trying to run something from a venue that wasn't a gaming centre. There's an absolutely awesome brewery not far from me, which is basically kind of it's a local brewery, and they have a fantastic sort of event space, which is a huge kind of circular room, which is right in the middle of the brewery itself, and where the sort of visitor centre and things are. And I've been to like a retro gaming tournament, retro gaming evening there, where they had like kind of hot food and stuff. There was like a Guitar Hero competition. There was a FIFA competition that had a load of old arcade machines and stuff. And there was just something about kind of being in a venue where it just felt really cool. You could go and have a beer at the bar. They had loads of different beers to try. The food was kind of street food type stuff. And then there was all these kind of retro games to play as well, and they kind of compete in different little competitions. It just made it feel a bit special. And I've never really seen that from like a wargaming tournament or anything like that. Wargaming tournaments also seem to kind of run all day. And actually it'd be interesting to see if something could be arranged so that it kind of maybe started a little bit later, but maybe kind of ran into the early evening rather than kind of finishing at about 5 o'clock or whatever. Anyway, just some kind of going from a bit of a tangent there, but just some thoughts. The other thing he's saying is that tying into this, hotel prices seem to affect drinking habits. Now, this is quite interesting. He says, over in the UK, our events have a lot of cheap and potent booze. I would echo that. A lot of events I've been to involve a lot of alcohol. Certainly in the UK anyway. He says at Adepticon it cost him $11 for a vodka and coke. And he says sort of bring your own bottles is sort of done at the American events, but not everyone is drinking. Now I've never been across to the States for kind of any events, so I couldn't really I can't really judge it in that way, but certainly from UK events, drinking tends to be a big part of it. There's obviously a lot of people who aren't drinking because they have their cars and stuff, but certainly if you're on a 2-day event, there can be quite a lot of alcohol consumed on that first day. He also goes on to say that basically the Americans make a big deal out of the whole weekend experience. You've got a big road trip to do, so you'll travel many, many miles, and that this seems to create more hype and energy leading up to the event. Now that's quite interesting really, because I guess when you're traveling that distance, you really are looking forward to it. You've made a real effort. If I think about our weekender really, the people that kind of travelled quite some distance really had bought into it and really were looking forward to it. Maybe the folks that were a little bit more on the doorstep in Manchester maybe treated it a little bit differently. I don't know. He also says part of this kind of build-up comes from things like the culture that has challenge matches. Now, this is not something we see a lot of in the UK. He said it's only just started to make its way across here, but that's come across from a lot of people in the community who've enjoyed going to US events and have brought some of the kind of the better things back. So I'll pause there for a little bit and I'll go back into it, and I'll come into the chat here and see what kind of comments we've got here. Where are we here? Where I kind of lost my plot there a little bit. Let's see. Todd Harris is saying he's working on 2.5D tiles for Resident Evil board game. Nice one. Tim is saying Fighting Fantasy Books, Talisman, Fantasy Battle, Hero Quest, Rogue Trader. That's how he started. Where are we at? Right. Luke is saying it's because the Americans are very happy and loud. There's certainly some kind of there's some stereotypes in there as well, isn't there? But yeah. Nick goes on to talk about that a little bit more later on as well, I think. Randall says it's clubs versus conventions, it seems to me. I think that certainly the big ones are more conventions, but a lot of the smaller kind of US tournaments are still big events, and they're still held in kind of sort of nicer places, if you like. Scouting the Web's in as well. Good evening, Lee. How you doing, buddy? He said the Lord of the Rings big event Ardacon is a fancy hotel in Manchester, but yeah, it's in a class of its own, really. Yeah, that happens. There's very few, I think, in the UK that really kind of go that extra mile, and cost must have a big part of it. Randall is saying there's a local bar here in Dallas that features tabletop gaming. Seems popular. We're starting to see a little bit of it to spring out into bars and stuff now. There's certainly board gaming groups in there. I think Lee does the Newcastle Blood Bowl. Is that in a pub as well? Tony is saying there's a lot. Good evening, Tony. By the way, I don't think I said hello to you. He's saying there's a lot of Guild Ball events in breweries and microbreweries in the States. Yeah. I think it just feels like a good fit. I'm just surprised it doesn't happen more. It can only be a cost thing. We've got Bazza in from Underdog Peyton says, howdy peeps, evening Bazza. Peter saying hi to him. Bob is saying, I think the size of the US means the Americans have to fly or drive for 14 hours, so they make the most of their time at cons, squeezing every last minute out of the event. I think maybe Adepticon might be slightly skewing this a little bit, because certainly it's a huge kind of convention, but when I see sort of some of the other big events, certainly I think probably the Kings of War ones are the ones I'm most familiar with, because they're kind of in and around the folks that go to those ones overseas. So people like Nick Williams, who else goes overseas as well? I forget now. There's a few who've kind of travelled more recently. Certainly like the 4 Foot Snake guys and folks like that. And this seem to be in nicer places. I don't think it's just the conventions. Let's have a look. Raw Gaming is saying, someone bring gaming to the South. Element Games rocks it up there. Element Games is awesome, don't get me wrong. It really is a good venue. I think like any kind of gaming venue, that there's always room to improve. I mean, how do I put this? It's a good place, but it's certainly not a 5-star hotel. Let's be honest. Put it that way. Tim Kelly said, Skullmunch is saying, we travelled a fair bit for the weekend and made a whole weekend of it. Definitely added to the overall hype for us. Yeah, I think certainly the further you travel, the more you look forward to it, because you kind of have to plan for it. You've got to build up to it, haven't you? You've got to book your hotel. It's like a mini holiday, really. It's a little bit like when I go down to UK Games Expo, because it's a kind of over like 3 or 4 days for me sometimes, and I've got to plan well ahead. I've got to book my hotel, and I've got to try and line up what I'm going to do there. I get quite excited about going. I'm really looking forward to it. Where are we? Tim Kelly says, South Coast Entoyment in Poole is chuffing awesome place. I've never heard of that, mate. I'll have to look out for that one. Bob says, grudge matches have been around for years in Fantasy Battle and 40k, especially back in the days of Warhammer Player Society. I'm not as familiar with them, mate, but I guess, yeah, I've certainly heard of kind of grudge matches. I think it's just more commonplace these days in the American scene, I think. Randall saying, lots of folks had their drink at Adepticon. Bring your own bottle last year. I dropped $15 for a mixed drink. So how does that work? How do you bring your own drink to a hotel that sells drink? Because in the UK, they would not let you do that. Is that a completely different kind of sort of rules or something, is it? Ian Scams is in. He says, evening, what have I missed? We're just getting onto the subject, mate, of kind of the differences between... certainly Nick Williams' observations of the difference between US gaming or gaming communities and the UK. We're going to kind of open it up to the whole globe in a bit, but I'm just I'm setting this off really as a bit of a kind of starter for 10, really. Lee is saying, I think Articon is £80 a ticket, so the cost reflects the venue, and as gamers do prefer cheaper in general. That's an interesting point. I mean, would people really pay more for a nicer venue? Would people pay more for a kind of for a hotel venue where the room was included? Because people obviously then pay for hotels and stuff. It'll be interesting whether that would be a thing. Sean saying, Andy gave everyone minis for getting in early. Shh, don't tell anyone about that. Luke saying, D&D is trendy hip coffee shops now. There's going to be a turf war. I've got this kind of like Gangs of New York thing in my head, where everybody kind of meeting up in the town square with with like rule books to batter each other with. Scout on the web says, yeah, Geordie Blood Bowl leagues in a pub. They're running tournament in the pub, funny enough too. Not sure where the other tournaments are held, but I'm attending one in Jesmond soon. I guess Blood Bowl leans itself to sort of opening to other areas with the boards not being as big. I guess if you're looking at like kind of big 6x4 tables, it maybe takes a little bit more organising. Todd's saying Origins is held in my hometown of Columbus, Ohio. It's got a very big draw which attracts lots of local game clubs. From what I hear, Adepticon is starting to get as big a draw, if not more, than Gen Con. I think they're maybe a little bit different audiences. Adepticon is certainly the biggest war gaming event, I think. And Gen Con is certainly by far the biggest, more focused around board games, I would say, with a little smattering of miniature stuff in there as well. We've got Al Crabian says, hi all, good evening Al. Randall says, oh no, it froze up. Apologies for that, I don't know what the hell's going on tonight with the stream. Definitely April Fool's gremlins. Rose says he's got a go. Bye all, thanks for dropping in, buddy. We've got Martin from Dice Tales. He says, evening, I think Manchester has a hotel con or two. Stabcon is hotel, but it's not 5-star. I think we definitely seem to try and kind of, we try to do things on the cheap, I think, don't we, in the UK? And I don't mean that as a derogatory thing. I think we try and sort of keep the cost as low as possible. Like tickets for events, I think tend to be quite reasonably priced. Someone says Stabcon. Steve says, I remember doing Fantasy GT in a hotel in Nottingham back in the day. Don't know why you don't see them so often now. I guess if you can get the numbers right, it'll probably pay for itself. And I guess if you've got an established community and you know the people that are running the event are going to run a good event. Certainly, if I think about the AOS event not too long ago in Nottingham, which was at the Roundhouse, I think, that Ben Curry ran from Bad Dice. That was at a really nice venue as well. We got 12 Neef in. Good evening, 12 Neef. He says, I'm from New York and have been to Warhammer World 3 times. I played at the Underworld's Grand Clash in January, even brought my models to Egypt. Been to LVO, Adepticon and Nova. So you must have seen some differences. Do you see some differences even just moving around in the US? So if you go East Coast and West Coast and more Central US, do you see gaming differences? Randall is saying, portable coolers on wheels, keeping everything cool. As long as things don't get out of hand, they're cool with people drinking at the tables. And Todd says, hotels in the States don't usually worry about people bringing their own bottles within reason. That's really interesting because it would not happen in the UK. If you got caught bringing your own drinks in, you'd be asked to leave. Because I guess a lot of these venues, that's where they make their money. They make their money on the bar. So it's quite interesting, that, actually. Al saying, people don't always prefer cheaper. It's good to have the option, but always have an all-inclusive option where possible. I, for one, would enjoy that more than having to mess around. Yeah, I think I'd be quite interested in kind of doing an event or something where it was a bit more kind of catered, if you like. Like I can imagine like our weekender a little bit in a hotel where you basically your rooms in the hotel. You have a huge room for all the games that's going on. You can kind of come and go as you please. Everybody's kind of contained and hanging out in the same area. Gaming can go on much later. I can imagine that, like, if it ever grew, it would be awesome to do something a bit like that. Nick says, got to go, the kids are crying. I know how that feels, buddy, after last week. Yeah, hope everything's all right there. Gene has come in as well. Good evening, Gene. He says, hi all. Most gaming venues are limited to gaming stores. Tournaments are in hotels once they're big enough. Gaming at friends' places takes turn hosting. He's jealous of clubs, which is a European phenomenon. Yeah, that's quite interesting. I mean, that's one thing I have heard is that it's like, especially in the US, the scene seems to be around gaming stores as opposed to kind of individual clubs. But then again, our gaming stores are not really up to the levels of yours because they're not supported. Everybody has clubs in like sort of church halls on a weekend. It is a real interesting kind of mix, that. Lee saying, if there was a good discount at the hotel, I'd pay more for a ticket. I think they only do small discount for Oddcon though. I think it's one of them things, if you could kind of guarantee sort of you were going to sell, for example, 30 rooms, they might give you a bit of a discount really. So it'd be quite interesting, that. VJ says, it's 12 Neef. And Peter says, sounds good, Andy. I hope it happens. I mean, I've got, it'll take years, I think, to get to them kind of levels, but I just wonder if there's a place for a slightly more, and I've got to choose my words carefully here, just an American style event. Let's put it that way. Just before I move on, 12 Neef has just said there, he says there's definitely a difference in play styles. Midwest seems to be more laid back than the coasts. Europe is definitely chill. US is very gamey. We like to play super competitive, which is not my style. That's quite interesting. I wouldn't have thought that, actually. I would have thought when you travel all that way, it's kind of a bit more social. Which actually brings me on to Nick's next comments. So he says the socialization plays into activities and meals outside of the event. He says Americans have a massive difference in your regional cultures, far more than we have between regions in the UK. The difference is almost as vast as if we were playing tournaments all over Europe and sampling the local culture. Part of the social road trip element is going out and sampling it together. And said for UK events, there's less of this difference between regions, which I obviously agree with. He says there might be a good curry house in Bristol, but I've been to a good curry house in Leeds too. So yeah, there's very minor kind of sort of regional kind of delicacies, if you like, in the UK, but we're a small country, and actually, other than our accents, there's not a lot different really between different regions. He said, on the other hand, I don't think many people could imagine a bar which has dodgems meets lacrosse in it. It's something unique to Chicago. So I did see these pictures. I don't know if anybody saw it. The guys from Mantic basically had all been out for a few drinks on one night, and they'd gone to this bar that had it was like dodgems with lacrosse, like some kind of weird sport thing, but it was inside the bar. It looked really good fun, but yeah, not something I'd ever seen before. He also goes on to say getting many UK players to travel is not easy, even for 2-day events. How do the UK folks feel about that? Do you travel for many 2-day events? What is it that stops you travelling for 2-day events? He then goes on to mention about soft scores, and he said it doesn't just affect the placings, but also how people approach the hobby. People just put more effort into painting their armies and having cool hobby stuff over there. How much of it's driven by soft scores and how much is just a symptom of a different culture, I don't know, but I certainly think that soft scores is a decent chunk of that. He then goes on to say the American 2-day events are much bigger than ours. We get around 20 to 30 players for a 2-day event, except for something like Clash of Kings, which is like an 80-player event. And he said Americans tend to seem to get 60 to 80 players as standard. So how does that kind of sound to you folks? Is that something you've experienced? Do you see the American events having more players in general? How is this over in Europe? Any of you folks kind of in kind of mainland Europe, what kind of turnouts do you get for your events? Do you tend to find the sort of European events are a bit more social? Do you find travelling over to the UK, you find our events quite social? So I'll pop that into the chat and see what's happening here. He said, Randall said he ran into Mel the Terrain Tutor at Adepticon, talked about the difference in UK and US gaming. Interesting. So he mentioned Salute was a single-day event, opens in the morning and shuts down late in the afternoon. Doesn't seem to accommodate gamers and tournaments. If you've not seen it, Randall, I did a video recently which was about why I'm not going back to Salute. And a lot of what Mel's just said there really is a lot of the reasons why I just don't bother going anymore now. It is essentially a big shopping centre. There is a few demonstration games, but because there's so few, you'd end up hanging around all day trying to get a game of them. It is essentially just a big market really, but wandering around a huge, what looks like an aircraft hangar, wandering around where there's loads of stalls, really just stuff to buy. If there was more to do, or it was on over a longer time, it would be more interesting because it opens about 10 in the morning, and by kind of 4 o'clock, it's really running down. So it's only really 6 hours. It takes me a lot longer to travel there than the time I'd spend at the event. So yeah, I wouldn't say, whilst Salute might have a big name kind of globally as a big event in the UK, it's not really. It's a shopping experience. It's not a tournament or a convention like you would normally expect. Where we got Glenn is saying if you have to travel a long way, being an event in a hotel has more appeal as you get the entire weekend in one venue. If it was more local for some people, the hotel as a venue might not be worth it. Yeah, that's a common thing, isn't it? Really, I guess it depends upon what you're trying to do. Some people still like, even if it was a full weekend and it was local-ish, people would still like to stay at the hotel to kind of socialise and not have to drive. It just depends on the cost and the location, I guess. Randall saying also there's a lot of classes and seminars at events like Adepticon and Nova and Origins. Yeah, we don't see that so much in the UK. Certainly the UK Games Expo has quite a few. But again, that is more board gaming focused. But I would say the UK Games Expo is very much kind of a small version of Gen Con. It's on that kind of style, if you like. There isn't really there's nothing like Adepticon, I would say, in the UK at the minute. We have very small sort of tournament type stuff. I'm trying to think if maybe is the big event in the Grand Clash. Is it the London, whatever it's called, the big one in London? That was held at a football stadium, I think, this year or last year. That might be the closest thing. But yeah, there's from considering there's so much war gaming and kind of miniature gaming in the UK and the companies in the UK, there's not a lot. There's nothing to really rival Adepticon. Randall saying one of the best things about Adepticon's the deep dish pizza. That's what you get for being in Chicago, I guess. Dicetail says, what's soft scores? So essentially, Mark, soft scores are when they have points in a tournament based upon hobby. So your painting standard gets you points in the tournament. Things like favourite player awards, or like kind of most sporting, that goes towards your tournament scores as well. So anything that is not directly linked to just the game itself. Hendrik says, we had 20 players for Kings of War, but part 2 and 3 is not filling that fast. I guess Kings of War is still a relative growing game at this stage, is it? So that might explain some of the numbers. But do you have any kind of thoughts on why it's not grown as fast the second and third time? Lee says, traveling to events I don't like to travel far, just around 2 hours. But it's not so much about the time, it's more the cost. Not sure how it compares, but it's the cost of fuel that puts me off. Oh, that suddenly got really strong. I think it depends upon if you're on your own, or if you're sharing a car full of people as well. If you're sharing with sort of 4 people in a car, it can certainly split the costs down. But yeah, you've got to factor everything in, haven't you? It's part of the whole weekend, and it needs to be something pretty special to kind of make you pay for fuel and for food and drink and for hotel and for a tournament and all that kind of stuff. If it's just your standard kind of games, which certainly if things like Adepticon are not, then you do start to think, well, I can get that kind of game in locally. Where are we? We've got Spud in, the Wargamer Viking. Evening, buddy. He says, maybe you should pop to ChillCon. I do plan to, mate, actually. I think the last every ChillCon has been so far, it's clashed with something else. So we had our event the same weekend that you did for the last ChillCon. I think the one before I was on holiday, I've always managed to clash something. But certainly the next ChillCon, I don't think I've got any plans, so I might try and get to that one. We've got Kirill. I'm not even going to try and pronounce your surname and butcher that. I apologise. Well, good evening, Kirill. He says, greetings from Russia. Great channel, man. Thank you very much. He says, big communities in Moscow and St. Petersburg, but mainly in store clubs and small local clubs across the country. 40k dominates, other war gamers rise, and long live the Kings of War. Well, thank you for coming in from Russia. Always good to have more nationalities represented here. And it's interesting to see your viewpoints. You seem to have the kind of the club culture a little bit like the UK does. Do you have big events? 40k seems to dominate, as I guess it probably does across most regions. But do you have? I guess traveling in Russia is probably very much like traveling in the US, big country. And is there a lot of wargaming, or do you have to travel quite far to to big tournaments to get games in? Tony saying, I like the idea of hotels as venues. You don't have to stop playing. Even at the weekend, they're finishing at 11. I would have enjoyed a couple of more games and chatting nonsense. Yeah, me too. It was Element Games closing up really was what kind of kicked us out there. And it's another thing I've been thinking about really, about how do we how do we extend that? How do we make it so that if people do want to continue, they can? So not sure we can do anything for the next one, but who knows if it grows in the future, maybe that's a consideration. Randall says at Adepticon, for example, there were 4 kill team events. 64 people signed up for each of the tournaments. Other game systems had 80 to 100 contestants. I think Adepticon might be a bit of a strange barometer really to measure other events at, because it's a big event, isn't it? But certainly the sort of the big ones that I know about, things like LVO, things like Adepticon, Origins, they do attract a big audience. Do you find, and this is something I haven't sort of asked the question about yet, anybody that was at Adepticon and played in the events, do you find that you're just tied up into playing the events for the whole weekend? Or do you still have time to kind of socialise and get around and see things and meet people? Or do you just find you're in a tournament and the event is happening around you while you're playing your games? It'd be good to understand that. 12 Niece says the first year of the Warhammer TV, people went to Adepticon. They were shocked at the size of it. Yeah, I've kind of heard a lot about people getting out there and not expecting it to be quite so big. Skullmunch says he'd happily pay a bit more for the full experience. Drive to a hotel, plenty of parking, gaming event. Gaming event in sight with a room, food and drink. It's one of the things I'm looking forward to at UK Games Expo, because they continue kind of into the evening at the Hilton Hotel over the road as well. This is why I'm going on my own. When I went last year with my son, he was kind of absolutely exhausted by 6 o'clock, so I never got to experience that. This year I'm looking forward to getting the full experience, if you like. I got slightly distracted there by a donation by VG Morph. Thank you very much, buddy, for the super chat there. Really do appreciate it. If it doesn't ping up on the screen soon, it certainly will. There's always sometimes a bit of a delay with it, but your name will replace JJ Model Making at the bottom there in a few minutes. Thank you very much appreciated. 12 News said I'd like to see other cons get big in the US, like the SoCal Open. There we go. Knew it would come eventually. The Louisville Slugger, but a lot don't favour Sigma or Underworlds. I met a lot of great people at Grand Clash. That's the one, Grand Clash in London I was thinking of. In January. I also jumped ahead a little bit here as well. Randall said a lot of Adepticon was socialisation. Walk into the convention centre at 2 or 3 a.m. you could find a pickup game. That's the bit I've not experienced yet, and I'd really love to. That idea of that kind of 24-hour gaming where you're not confined into everything out by 7 o'clock kind of thing. It's something I really want to experience. Lee's in the London GT. I think that's what I'm trying to think of, mate. Blood and Glory is trying to get bigger. Also the South Coast GT, I guess, but still way off Adepticon. Yeah, I think we're a long way off those big events, but the idea that they're branching out into kind of nicer venues really interests me. Wargamer Viking is saying, hope so, buddy. Drop us a message on Facebook. We're having press passes this year and looking for Wargamers to review the show. Yeah, absolutely, mate. I'm more than happy to contact you, mate. It's like I say, it's been something I've been wanting to get to. It's just, I think, is your next one in Sheffield, I think, as well. So, it's in the north. There's no reason not to go, is there? Steve is saying, I think I'm at the wrong end of the country in the southwest. There's trains not great to get up north, so don't fancy driving miles. Yeah, it's one of the things I think that Americans always kind of laugh at us when we complain about driving in the UK, saying, oh, you won't even sort of drive 3 hours. We drive for like 24 hours to get where we want to get to. I think the problem we have in the UK is the roads are awful. They're always jam-packed. It's not a kind of enjoyable experience driving around the UK. And I do a lot of driving. I mean, when I drive to kind of my office in Manchester, I can do it there and back in a day. And it's kind of 6 to 7 hours out of my day stuck on a motorway. And sometimes it's like sitting in a car park on some of those motorways. It's not a nice experience. So I do get that, Steve, especially when you're kind of down the south coast. When it comes to trains, I mentioned this in my salute video, really. Trains are bloody expensive in the UK for when you think about it. It's if trains were more affordable, I think more people would choose to use them. But unless you can get like a good deal, because we have basically a system where if you can book a train ticket 12 weeks out from your journey, you'll tend to get a good price. But when it gets closer to the day, like if you want to get a ticket for tomorrow, It's an absolute fortune. Skull Munch is seeing giant Catan in the car park. That'll be cool. War Game of Eight is saying it's in Derby next. That's it. It must have been Sheffield the last one. I knew it was getting mixed up. Hendrik said he has a friend who does an after the game party at Essen. Starts at 4 till 1. Had more fun than Essen Spiel. I think that's probably the case. I mean, there's quite a lot of events I've heard about people kind of sort of having their own little after parties. I know Mantic do a bit of a kind of like a Mantic evening at Adepticon with a few beers and kind of pick up games and stuff. That kind of thing really interests me. Tony is saying Element's car park resembles the sun. Yeah, you're not wrong. Could do with a little bit of tarmac, couldn't it? Randall says you can play but also socialise. It's a matter of scheduling. Easy to miss some events. Yeah, I think people in the UK tend to, once they've bought into an event, that's it. That's all they're focused on, really. I think certainly in the US, I think I've certainly heard this, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I think people tend to have their first day of the event, and if things are not going so well or they're not really enjoying it or whatever, they'll kind of just drop out of the second day and go and do something else. You tend not to see that very much in the UK, but that might be more due to the fact that there's not a lot to drop out and do. So if you drop out of a second day of an event, you might as well kind of go home because there's not much else happening. I think that could possibly be why. 12 Nephas, missed this one, sorry. Where we... VG is saying, speaking of Underworlds, the Agents of Sigmar guys are doing a live stream. They only do one a month, so I'm going to go check that out. Catch you all next week. Thanks for dropping in, VG. Thanks very much for the super chat as well. 12 Nephas says, it just came back. I socialised during the tournament, depending on the point size. Lower points is more casual, but the tournament's got all day and night, so you can miss a lot of them. And he says, Blackjack, you need to do a Adepticon one year, mate. I would love to do a Adepticon. Purely at the minute, it's just the cost to get out there, really. I'd have to really plan it carefully. It also tends to happen around both my wedding anniversary and my wife's birthday as well, so I might need to make it a family trip. Al Crowley says not many venues apart from pubs, hotels are going to stay open past 8 to 10 in the UK due to licensing and insurance caveats. Certainly not serving alcohol. So this is where hotels come in, buddy, because hotels have a different kind of licensing. That basically is, as long as you are staying at the hotel, the bar can keep open because then it becomes a private members bar. So the laws are slightly different around that. So if you're staying at a hotel, the bar will stay open as long as people are drinking, really. And that's why the idea of having an event at a hotel where everybody stays, therefore you can game into the night as long as you want, makes it really interesting. Andy Smith says, have you done a beginner's game video or games suitable for kids, teens, fat lads? I have done a video on 5 miniatures games for beginners, so definitely check that one out. I don't know if I've done anything for... When you say kids, teens and fat lads, the beginners one is probably good for that. They're kind of small scale games, and I think I also... Did I do it? It might have been the same video. No, it was a little while ago now, but I also kept the cost so the entry cost into the game had to be less than the price of like a console game to try and show as a, like, you can go and buy the new PlayStation game, or you could start with a starter box for this game. So it's worth checking that out. Skull Munch is saying to Tony, everybody automatically gets a stone every turn. That car park, yeah. Reluctant RC says, seems like you need a hotel conference room and everybody gathered in the same place. I agree, small and intimate is far better. Yeah, I think it's like, before we did the Top Table Legacy Weekender, I had something in my head about trying to run a kind of a small event myself, really, with this community, to try and get a few people together. And my idea was to maybe try and get it in like a hotel conference room and try and get people together that way. Then it was less for me to try and organise because everything was just under one venue. But then we kind of got together and did our own thing. So who knows in the future, eh? Al says hotel with function suites are normally willing to do deals quieter times of the year, so you can guarantee a number and negotiate from there. Yeah, that was another thing I'd consider. So if you kind of outside of wedding season, you know, if you're wanting to have an event maybe in February, say, or something like that, so or even January post Christmas, when everybody's nobody's going to sort of any events or anything. January, February is not a bad time to do something like that. Gene says, Canadian experience, you get both. Long drive on bad roads. Steve says, you went to WAFCON last year and the trip back was awful. 5 hours on the M6. Yeah, don't envy you, buddy. I mean, it's. I heard WAFCON was good fun, so I hope you had a good time. But yeah, driving in the UK is a pain, man. 12 Niece says, I taxied in London and often on bus was okay, but I see your point. Petrol's really pricey for you, Brit. Yeah, petrol is a bit pricey as well. It also doesn't help. Yeah, it's just one more problem, I guess. Gives us something else to complain about. Artie says potholes. Yeah, potholes everywhere in the UK as well. Lee says driving in the UK isn't fun, but isn't fuel still really cheap in the US too? I think it's going up, and I think they're kind of it's getting more expensive, but it's still nowhere near the price that we pay in the UK. A huge chunk of what we pay in the UK is tax on fuel, so you don't tend to see that in the US. Flying Mammal says, I'm in with your event idea. You can help me organise it. I could do with an extra pair of hands. And I was trying to kind of think of something a while ago about how could I kind of bring everybody together. And I was thinking of something kind of self-contained like that. But maybe less kind of event-focused, what we did with Weekender, and more just kind of trying to pull everybody together, get a few board games on the go and maybe some party games to pull the group together. But I was thinking smaller numbers. I wasn't kind of thinking the 50, 60 that we had at the Weekender. I was probably thinking it would be a bit more niche and a bit smaller, because obviously my pull, if you like, of it into a wider community is not huge. So 12 News says, Bad Moon Cafe in London has had a few events since January. I've heard that's a nice place, actually. I'll have to certainly check that place out. I've seen some photographs and it looks really nice. Al said, I used to be an events manager for a hotel group back in the day, mate. We did all sorts. Loads of hotels have quiet periods that need filling. That's exactly what I was thinking. I need, because I used to work in beer, wines and spirits as well. So I've fed into that like area a little bit and understand a little bit from that side of it. And there's certainly deals to be done if you can get the right time of year. But like, yeah, UK Games Expo, for example, May, June, peak time of the year. It's fine having it where it has it at the NEC, but if that was sort of a hotel somewhere, that's prime wedding season then, isn't it? Randall said, it's worth mentioning Adepticon is family friendly. Events for kids, painting, kids gaming, also other events in the area for family that aren't into the gaming scene. That's quite interesting. I think I always figured that it was much more adult, I suppose. Don't take that the wrong way. You know what I mean? I assumed it was much more mature focused. We got Jack in as well. Says, hello, Andy. That reminds me, I need to send your brushes out. Says, hello, all. Been working late. So what did I miss? We're just kind of getting into the gist of it, really. I mean, we've got about half an hour left, but I'm just going through some comments from Nick Williams, who spent some time at Adepticon this weekend, and he saw some things with the Americans that he really enjoyed. And I'm kind of trying to see how gaming differs around the globe, really. Flying Mammal saying, let's do it. I'll be in touch. Kirill says, in Moscow, tournaments take place about 10 to 15 times a month. Half of it's 40k, 20 people is common size. We have about 1 to 3 big war games conventions a year, smaller than Adepticon. Most popular systems, except 40k, are Malifaux, Age of Sigmar, Infinity Flames of War, Drop Zone, Guild Ball, Vanguard. Bolt action becomes more and more popular. Historical war games are in respect. That's quite interesting. I mean, it sounds like the games that we play are all pretty similar, and the popular ones are popular everywhere, and then maybe the small and growing ones are small and growing everywhere. So that is quite interesting. It doesn't feel like we have different sort of gaming attitudes, if you like. It just feels like how we organise the events are very different, or how we organise getting together to play them. That's quite interesting, that. Johnny Jumbo says, I think we all work in wines, beers and spirits. I don't know if I've ever really kind of talked about it before. So I used to work for a wine bottling company. So I was an engineer there originally, and then over time was promoted through many different roles to a point where I was part of my role was to taste all wine that came into the factory. So it would come over in tankers from kind of New Zealand and Australia and California and from France and Italy. And then it was my job to taste the wine when it came in to make sure it was exactly what we expected was the kind of the taste profile correct. So I think I touched on it recently actually, but yeah, so that was my job. And then from there I moved into, I basically ran a team of 50 people who were responsible for installing all of the cellar work and all of the beer lines and the taps on the bar for all of the bars in the northeast of England. So I spent quite a bit of time going into new hotels and kind of new bars and nightclubs and that kind of thing. It was interesting, really interesting. Skullmunch says, Shaggy, you missed it and you give away bottles of drink to anybody on. Shh, you keep telling everybody the secrets. Lee says, that's why Americans don't get why we moan about driving. They don't see the cost. Yeah, I mean, I know from being on holiday in the US, like, and driving over there, fuel is a lot cheaper. That's why everybody's got huge kind of V6 engines and stuff, and you get those massive big, everybody's got big sort of Ford F-150 trucks and stuff. Not everybody, that's very stereotypical, but I love all that stuff. Whenever I've been there in the past and I've hired a car, I've always hired something really nice, just because I know I'd never be able to have one in the UK. So I've had all sorts of kind of big trucks and what was the last one I had? I had kind of like a convertible Mustang once and stuff like that. Just things that you'd never get in the UK and could never afford to run. Randall says, cosplayer too, Oak Band is always an attraction. A lot of it's non-gaming. That's quite interesting. We tend to see cosplay at things like UK Games Expo is probably the closest thing we've got to like a US kind of event, and you're starting to see cosplay there. But cosplay is huge at sort of like video game conventions. They have really big cosplay elements there. Certainly at like Comic Cons as well. Reluctant Artie said, a dream job, mate. I couldn't drink it. I had to spit all the wine out. So you got to taste it. You just never got to drink it. And Al Krabby says, must be the drinks industry that makes us bald, mate. Who knows, mate? Maybe it is. Maybe that's exactly what it is. So yeah, I'll pop back to some of Nick's other comments now as well. So Nick said that the Americans tend to have a much greater variety in their events, with them being more open to custom rules and scenarios. UK events, by comparison, tend to be much more straight-laced and by the book. So that's quite interesting. We tend not to move away from the rule sets here. It feels like, from what Nick's saying, that the American scene like to kind of mix things up and put some custom stuff in there. And he said that, oh, excuse me, that went down the wrong way. And he said the final one is a culture thing, and that's just how friendly, loud, and super enthusiastic the Americans are. I wouldn't describe UK events as calm, quiet affairs, but they're nothing compared to the amazing cacophony of American events. Neither of the atmospheres are bad by any stretch, but they're very different. And that was kind of where he kind of covered it. So that's quite interesting. Is it just, and I apologize to my American viewers here, is it just that the Americans are naturally a bit louder and a bit more excitable? Or is it the fact that actually it's just the atmosphere of the event is a little bit more electric? Be interesting to understand if, do you see that kind of level of enthusiasm in everything, sort of in sports and what else? You know, music concerts or video game conventions and stuff, or is that something specific to kind of wargaming? And also, do you see, certainly across Europe and in Russia, do you tend to play games by the rule books, use the scenarios from the rule books, or do you tend to see a lot more kind of custom play? Steve said, I better get off to bed, catch the rest of the stream tomorrow at night all. Great chat. Thanks for dropping in, Steve. Really appreciate it, buddy. Tony said he filled up a Mustang in the US for £12. Yeah, I remember doing that as well. I once had, I think it was a Cadillac Escalade. Yeah, I think it was. And I think I filled up the tank and it cost me like 15 quid. and I might have emptied it in like 2 days, but it was amazing. Like, they just having a big car on the American roads. You kind of. I've also, the first time I went, I think I got like something like a Honda, and it was weird. I felt tiny compared to everything kind of driving around me. And from then on, by that point, I had a better job and I had a few more quid in my pocket. And I started to kind of hire nicer cars when I went on holiday. But the experience of it was amazing. Just, those sort of big V6 and V8 cars and stuff. Ruth saying, helps that Collector Mania is on the same time as UK Games Expo for cosplay. Is that the other event that's always on? I always see a lot of cosplayers walking about, but you tend not to see a lot of them in the UK Games Expo. Collector Mania. So do you go there as well? Do you visit them both? Do you get a ticket for both of them? Al says, do you think sometimes the smaller events spread themselves thin by trying to appeal to every game? I see this in motorbike meetups. Sometimes the successful ones tend to be more focused. It's an interesting point, mate, actually. Do we spread ourselves thin? I'm not sure. I mean, I think we try to grow the events by appealing to a wider audience. It's a bit like this channel, really. But sometimes you end up spreading yourself so thin that you never really drill down and attract the right one. Quite a deep question, really, because that's kind of where my head's at with my channel at the minute. So I don't know the answer. because I don't know the answer to that one. Tony's saying it's a shame that only allowed it to get out of the car park. That's about right, mate. Flying Mammal says, personally don't like cosplay being in with board gaming event unless it's board gaming related. That's quite interesting. That's almost like there's levels to cosplay. You see a lot. I've been to a lot of video game conventions because I've taken my 2 older sons to them, and a lot of them are in Birmingham at the convention centre there, the NEC. And you see a real mix. There's certainly people who dress up like kind of Overwatch and League of Legends and stuff like that. But then you get a lot of movie crossover. So you get Deadpools and you get Aliens and all sorts of like random stuff like that as well. I've never really thought about it like that, but maybe maybe kind of board gaming or tabletop gaming doesn't have as many iconic characters. Maybe that's why. Randall says Texans equals even louder and more obnoxious. There's a big Kings of War event in Texas, isn't there? Which is it Lone Wolf? I think it is. And Paul there's another person who's been to the States, Paul Welch. He was over there. I've not really spoken to him about his experiences, but I think one thing was overriding that comes back is everyone was really friendly. They kind of went out of the way to make the UK lads feel welcome, I think. 12 Neve says, Americans are louder and more enthusiastic. You Brits bred that out of yourselves ages ago. Yeah, we're all kind of self-deprecating, really, and it's like I read something the other day that I can't remember the context of it, but it was saying, if you want to find out who's British in the supermarket, just ram into them with a trolley. If they say sorry to you, then they're British, which I thought was quite interesting. Reluctant Archie said, a question for the group. Is Andy's view of the US being more free and extroverted and UK, Canada being more reserved and rules-focused reflected in game development? For example, GW, more rules, CMON, FFG, more open. That's a great question. It's something I'm going to do a video on it, actually. So at the weekend, I had my first game of Lord of the Rings, Middle-earth strategy battle game. And it's been a long time since I've actually tried to learn or to play a game from reading a rule book. A lot of times I've been introduced to games or I've seen so much of it on YouTube, it almost comes sort of second nature. And I actually quite struggled to learn to play the game by reading the rules. And I kind of reflected on that. I know myself and Sean had a little bit of chat on Facebook about this, and I was just really surprised just how difficult it was. So I'm going to do a video about it, I think. Maybe this week, maybe next week. But it's interesting when you put it in the context of the developers being from different countries and how their games are reflected. I guess you see it in board gaming, don't you, as well, with kind of Euro games versus, I don't like the term Ameritrash, but that's what it gets called, where it's got almost sort of theme over. The theme is more important than the rule set, where with the Euro games, the rule set's more important and the theme gets tacked on a little bit. Flying Mammalsian popped into Collectomania on the Saturday morning so I could meet Sylvester McCoy, who played Radagast. You as Radagast. That was pretty cool. I like that. I don't know, you'll have to share it. You must have a photograph of that. You'll have to share a picture of that, please. Al Krabby says, I just think if an event has a definite identity, people can buy in easier, and that's what you're looking for as an organizer. I think a Kill Team event would have a large appeal at the minute, for example. Yeah, I guess that's one of the reasons we struggled a little bit to try and get across our vision for the Weekender. Now, whilst it was a huge success and we'll be doing it again, part of the appeal is that people have experienced it now and they know what we were trying to get across. But trying to get a real multi-system, disorganized play, I think is what Jay called it, kind of a real multi-system thing. It was quite hard to get the message across. If we just said it's a Kill Team event, everyone would know exactly what to expect. You're right. We've got Brian Sheenan as well. Good evening, Brian. Thank you for dropping in. He said, GW has much more lore and world building. FFG tends to have well-known IPs. That's quite interesting as well. I guess I've got no idea. I was never into Games Workshop games when they were sort of first released, if you like. So I've no idea what it was like to get in when there wasn't a lot of lore around it. I mean, we've got 20 odd years of sort of 40k universe now, haven't we? Nobody else has that kind of lore built up, which is why I guess you buy into an established IP. Somebody else has then sort of written the lore for you. So maybe it's... I suppose you could compare it to Dungeons and Dragons, couldn't you? Like almost the background for D&D that's been created. Randall is saying the 12 needs enthusiastic. That's generous. RT saying, I almost exclusively learn games via YouTube. It's how I found your channel. Thank you, buddy. I think I compared it when I was talking to Sean. I compared it to Vanguard. So I was fortunate enough that Mantic sent me some models and they sent me the rule set for Vanguard before it was on public release. So I didn't have an introduction. The stuff came through the post. There was no videos to see because the game wasn't released yet. And I had to make some content on it, or I was going to make some content on it. So I had to learn to play the game purely by reading the rule book. And actually, I found it really straightforward to the point where kind of we only played one game before we did the original Bat Rep sort of film. We played one game before that. And actually the game flowed really well. I definitely couldn't play Lord of the Rings, if, for example, on camera as the second time I'd played it. Now, there's obviously the Lord of the Rings rules are a lot deeper. There's a lot more special rules, but we weren't even getting into those at that point in time. We were just trying to play those intro scenarios. I just found the book was so thick. I was constantly flicking backwards and forwards, looking for the little interaction that I couldn't quite find. It's one of the reasons I really enjoy Mantic games, like Mantic's games, is because I just find their rule sets are a bit easier to get into. I feel like I can learn to play the game very quickly, and I can just enjoy the game and learn the tactics later. Where with a lot of the GW stuff, one of the barriers for me in the past has been actually getting to play. I need somebody to teach me, really. Let's have a look. Where are we at? Wargamer Viking saying, great chat, buddy. Gotta go. Drop us a message after the show. Peace. Will do, mate. Thanks very much. Steve says you read rule books. I have to read it when I've got no idea how the game plays. I literally built my models on Friday evening, and then Jason came round on Saturday night and we played our first game. I've not, as I mentioned before, I've not even seen the movies, so I didn't even know the context of what like each of the different sort of models were. Mark saying to Steve, don't panic, it had pictures. Cheeky bugger. Henrik says, learning the new Walking Dead, but it's harder if you also have to translate the rules. That's harder and easy to get rules wrong. I can't even begin to imagine how you guys do it. I mean, I literally, I speak English, and even that with a Northeast accent. I couldn't even imagine trying to learn sort of the rules to a game from the rule book whilst translating it in my head as well. I've had a few chats with Alessio Cavatori, and he learned to play Warhammer from reading the English rule books, and one of his first jobs basically when he joined Games Workshop was translating the rule books into Italian. So there's obviously a skill to it, but I can't even imagine what that must be like to try and kind of learn a game in a second language. Hats off to you, that's for sure. Tony's saying, I really love the term disorganized player. Yeah, it kind of summed up what we're trying to do. It was organized play in the term of like there is an event and there is something there to turn up and play, but it was disorganized in the fact of like it's not meant to be it's not uber competitive. You're turning up to have fun kind of thing. Kirill is saying most Russian players are really straightforward about rules. Rule books is only truth. No step left or step right, even if rules are badly balanced. That's quite interesting as well. I think in the UK we almost we try to break the rules. We try to get around the rules. We try to find the loopholes. I think we almost use the rules as it doesn't say you can't do this a little bit. It's weird that. Kirill says, so fun player is what we really do need to understand and learn. Some players are already on that way. So you take the game quite sort of black and white, I suppose. That's quite interesting too. Do you still find it a fun experience, or do you see it as a very competitive experience in that case? Robert says, memory must be going. I almost forgot about the live chat. Don't worry, buddy. There's been a time difference as well, which probably didn't help. But welcome to the chat, mate. Mark saying, races break curfew gaslands at the Forge close to traffic centre. It's board game all day, but I want to play Gasline. I don't know if that was part of another comment. Revenant Tabletop Gaming's in. Good evening, buddy. How you doing, Anth? Skullmunch says, check out Top Table Gaming's Battle for Pelennor Field scenario videos. May help with the rules. Notice today on the back of the scenario book it mentions which rules you need and which pages. It does that actually, and I thought, when I first saw the books, I thought, that's brilliant, what a great idea. But then not all of the rules that you need are on those pages. That they're still then scattered throughout the book. So for example, when it comes to shooting, for example, it gives you some of the basic rules, but then it doesn't give you any of the profiles of the shooting weapons. So then you have to look elsewhere to try and find those. So then you have to go to the kind of the index at the back of the book, look for weapons. Then that takes you to another page. It would have been nice that if within the shooting section, if the profiles for the weapons were in there. Then it doesn't. It was only when watching a playthrough video that I saw that you could charge in, basically stop to throw your throwing spear, and then finish your charge. That didn't mention any of that in the shooting section. It also didn't mention it on the profiles for the weapons either. I don't know where that is in the rule book, but it was in the video. So there's loads of little quirky things like that. It didn't feel like, it felt like the rule book had been laid out by people who knew how to play the game. And with this being almost a second edition or a bit of a reboot of the game, the assumption's almost that most people have played it before. As somebody completely new to Lord of the Rings who doesn't even understand the kind of the characters or the story behind it, I found it really hard. I'll be honest. Tony is saying to Kirill, it can be that way here too, especially in competitive scenes. Yeah, don't disagree with that. We've got Ghost Ace 901. Good evening, Ghost Ace. It says, did you find it easy to play Vanguard because you've played Kings of War in the past? This helps me learn games as I can pick up games with a similar rule set. I've actually never played Kings of War. So in answer to your question, no, it didn't make it any easier. I'm aware of Kings of War. I'd kind of briefly read over the rules. And since I've played Vanguard, I've tried to get into Kings of War full scale by pushing some bits of kind of cardboard templates around the board. But no, it was completely new to me. I'd never played Kings of War before. Steve saying that's the same reason that he loves Mantic games. Yeah, I just find that I find that I get into the game playing them really quickly, and then I kind of discover the layers and the tactics and the special rules, if you like, later. I just felt with Middle Earth it was a bit like I couldn't even find the quick start bit, if you like. Do you know what I mean? There was too many bits missing. Skull Munch is saying strategy battle game is definitely more rules heavy game. A lot of games now like Vanguard are more streamlined. Yeah, and I think when I've got that many different kind of rule sets in my head as well, sometimes the more streamlined ones work better with me. But I don't want to miss out on some good games for the sake of spending a bit of time. And I'll be honest, for all we got lots of rules wrong, I really enjoyed the games. Jason bought a selection of different kinds of beers over, and we just kind of sat. We started about, I picked them up at 8 o'clock, and we were still sitting kind of playing at midnight at my house. So yeah, I had a really good night. It was awesome. We plan to do it again sort of next weekend. Al saying, can't believe you've not seen Lord of the Rings, mate. It's a bit of a standing joke, but yeah, I promise I'll watch it. Jason has even offered me his Netflix access code so I can go in and watch it on Netflix. I've got the films on Blu-ray. I've never sort of gotten around to it, mate. And Steve says, you speak English. I speak a very northern version of it, mate. Henrik said, good basic rules need to fit on one sheet of paper, otherwise the rules are broken quick. Yeah, there's a really, I forget who sort of the quote is attributed to, but there's an old quote that says, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I've wrote you a long one. And that kind of epitomizes really that it takes real skill to condense lots of words to mean exactly the same thing in a short space. And that's why I find things like when you see some rule books that are really, really thin, you think either there's a lot missing here or they've done an awesome job of condensing them rules. There's a real skill to very succinctly writing rules. If your rule book needs to be that thick to get your point across, you haven't explained it very well. Now, Lord of the Rings book, I'm not suggesting that at all, 40k, all that kind of thing. There's a hell of a lot of bits of fluff and other stuff in there as well. But if your rules need to be over kind of like 90 pages, either the game is really, really has lots of rules, or you've just had to explain the same thing 2 or 3 different times to explain every eventuality, if you like. Peter says, I find reading the rulebook a great way to start, and watching is more, do I like this game? Playing the game is the best way to learn it, in my opinion. The way my brain works is I really struggle to take it from the page and almost kind of see how it's going to play. This is one of the reasons why I don't really play a lot of competitive games, because I don't see the synergies. I don't see the kind of the loopholes, if you like. I don't see the broken lists. I really need to play the game and find them out for myself. So I tend to struggle to be able to play games from just reading the rules. So that's a personal trait of mine, really. However, doing this channel and getting more and more sort of board games and miniatures games before they release to retail is forcing me to really kind of get my head around that. So I'm getting better at it, but it's kind of it's more difficult for me, I'll be honest. Let's have a look. Adam saying, morning everyone, you started early today, Andy, so did I miss anything? We didn't start early, mate. It was just the clocks went forward at the weekend here. We have daylight savings time. So yeah, so we're slightly out of sync now. Yes, you did miss stuff, but by all means, catch up at a later time, mate. It'll take me an hour to tell you what you've missed. Artie said free wine. Randall says, thanks for the stream, man. Got to head off to Paint Club later, everyone. Thanks for coming in, buddy. Catch you later. And Sean says, yeah, I see what you mean, mate. The throwing spears rule is in the war gear section. Yeah, I'm not suggesting that there's rules missing. It's not, reading through it the first time, really, it's not obvious where everything is. And because I had nothing to kind of sort of measure it against, I didn't know what I was missing. Do you know what I mean? Ghost Days is saying, I thought you played at Kings of War. No, I'm really interested in it. I've been trying to put an army together. I'm seriously considering getting a commission painter to paint me a Kings of War army just so I can play it, if I'm honest. Just to kind of a very basic tabletop standard, because that's what stops me playing. I'd love to get into the kind of tournament scene for it, just for the fun and stuff, but that's what stops me, is just getting an army together. He said, I found it easy to get into Shadow War again, for example, because I play 40k. Good to hear, though, you're playing Lord of the Rings. It was my first serious game. A lot of people I knew played 40k. Yeah, to be honest, I mean, one of the reasons I got into Kill Team was to try and sort of ease myself into 40k, really, but I found that I just enjoyed Kill Team. But I am building up my Space Wolves in the background as well. Ghost Day says Lord of the Rings was his first war game in love. A lot of people have said that. Peter says, can I use those throwing spears in Kill Team? I think you can, but they're probably called like pistols. Shaggy says, I like people walking me through a game most of the time. Yeah, I work better after a demo as well. If somebody's demoed the game to me, or somebody's teaching me, taking me through it, it tends to sink in. I was just having this conversation with my son at the weekend, because they're coming up now to doing their GCSE exams, and they're having to do a lot of revision at the minute. And I say, when I was a kid doing my exams, I really struggled to do revision. I've got one of those kind of brains that if I hear it once, if somebody tells me it, it sinks in. If I see it on a screen, or I see it on a blackboard or whatever, or a whiteboard these days, it sinks into my brain. But if I have to read a book, I struggle. I mean, I can read and I can understand stuff, but my brain does not absorb things like sort of visually like that. If I hear them, or they're presented in a different way, like in more like pictures, it just sinks in easier into my head. I can understand a diagram, I can understand a graph or a chart, and I can absorb that information much faster than if you actually wrote it down and I read it. We've got Halmore. Redwell is in as well. Good evening, Redwell. He says, give Battletech a go. I've heard about Battletech, yeah. I've never played it though. Al says, GW have done an admirable job of supplying simplified beginners rules lately. Kill Team and Shadow Spear both came with rules my 6-year-old understands. And my 10-year-old adds more bits to it. That's quite interesting. I wouldn't mind having a look at those rules at some point. I also want to say a huge thank you to Kirill as well, who's a new member. I think he's actually my first member. So thank you very much, buddy. Really appreciate that. I'll have to find out more about what that means, but thank you. Ghost Day says, it's why I love the Osprey books, as they're very condensed rules in short book. Black Ops rules set, for example, is very heavy. I feel with a lot of rules for sentries, for example, but they cover a lot. Hal says, good day, Andy. Hope all is well, mate. Late as I was playing some Silver Tower and Heroes of Black Reach. Well, thank you for coming in, and I'm glad you've had some games, buddy. Flying Mammal says, the answers are all in the movies. That explains it all. That explains it all. 12 Knee says, Adepticon had great classes. Duncan had a great power weapon, gave a great power weapons, and I did a comic style painting class with inks that I can't wait to do my skirmish games. I would love to try a painting class. I'm really tempted to sign up for a painting lessons this year, just to kind of kick myself on. I've got to a point now where speed over quality is definitely where I'm at the minute, and my painting's become much faster, but my quality's not really gone anywhere. Mark says to Ruth, the advanced answers are in the extended versions. That's when the true skill comes in. Adam said, it's going to be weird for me now. Normally I start off and see the first 45 minutes of the chat and then catch up on the end later. Now I'm going to have to see it from halfway through and go back and watch the start. Like some kind of weird time warp. Johnny Jambo says, hey, quick question. I'm looking Kings of War Vanguard and want a Goblin Warband against a Dwarf one. I've seen the Dwarfs but can't see a Goblin Warband for sale yet. Just the army. Could I use that? Yes, you could use that. I think Goblins are either very, very soon, or they're certainly due to be released, or they've only just been released. So if you're wanting Goblins, it might be worth hanging on. If you have a look on the Mantic Games sort of YouTube channel and stuff, you'll see all of the new Goblin stuff that they've got. I saw it firsthand myself when I was down there in February. And it's all been painted by Angel Heraldez. and it is beautiful. It's really nice. So the new stuff is awesome if you want to hang on for that. Excuse me, but you'll certainly be able to use whatever's... check out the free rules online, have some sort of basic army lists on them. It's worth checking out there because not everything in Kings of War can be used in Kings of War Vanguard. So check those out, mate. Thank you again to Kirill there for the membership thing there as well. It's I've just gotten to that bit in the chat, so thank you very much, buddy. Adam says it's going to start my eye twitching again. It's not Twitch, this is YouTube. Steve says, get yourself an ogre army for kings as you don't need a lot of world. I've already got an ogre army. That's the annoying thing. I've got an ogre army. I've got a dwarf, or certainly the start of a dwarf army that Tony sent me that I'm kind of halfway through putting together. And I also got an undead army as well that he sent me that Jason's busy building up for me as well. So maybe I should just get one of those sent out for painting. Flying Mile says, Sean reads rules and teaches me. He learns the words I learn from doing. Yeah, I'm definitely on the same wavelength as you. And he says, Flying Mile also says, new member of what? So essentially now, YouTube have introduced a new thing where you can be a member. I think it's almost like, if you're on Twitch, you know how you can kind of, you can subscribe. I don't know what it's called on Twitch, basically, where you can basically kind of, you donate every month, almost like a kind of like a payment thing. Or you can donate for 1 month or something. Membership is basically the YouTube version of that. So yeah, thanks again, buddy. Mark says to Johnny Jumbo, the Goblin Warband is out soon. May, I think. I knew it was coming soon, mate. Flymar says, how do we become members? Let me find out and I'll post something in the Facebook group. I think also as well, I need to look into this, but I think if you become a member, you get special icons as well for the chat. So if Kirill is still in, if Kirill comments, he should his little avatar thing. I'm assuming it's a he. I apologize if not. His little avatar thing should be like my BlackJack Legacy logo, I think. So I think it's set up so you get like sort of. I think your comments are highlighted so that I see them, and I also think that you get special avatars and stuff, so everybody sees that you're a member of the club. Skullmunch says, I'm weird. I'm fascinated by rules. I love reading rule books. I've read hundreds of rule books, even for games I've never played. I've got an Audible subscription because I like listening to books. Obviously, I do a lot of it when I'm driving as well. But yeah, I listen to them rather than read them. I think we've obviously just got brains that work in different ways. We like to get to the same point, but the journey, how we get there is different. We've got another donation tonight as well. Hal Martin, thank you very much for the donation. Massively appreciated for the super chat there tonight. It always, I'll be completely honest, whenever anybody donates, it always kind of throws me off because I always feel a bit weird about it because it's like, it's really nice and it's massively appreciated, but I never know what it's for. Like I think, what have I done? Why is somebody giving me some money? It feels weird, but it's massively appreciated. Honestly, thank you very much. Steve says, borrow an army and enter an event. To be honest, Nick Williams has offered that exactly to me, but I think the problem is I've never played yet. I think I'd rather have my own to kind of learn with and try and push around at home to get to that point. But at some point this year, I will come to an event and play Kings of War using a army, whether it's my own or somebody else's. I need to set that up. Flying Mumble said it's some elite club. I could tell you, but it's an elite club and it's a secret. RTC and member, we get the better value wine. Yeah, I'll have to start handing that out now. Skullmuncher said, how do we become members? Yeah, I think there's a. I'll be honest, I don't really know. I think there's a member button on. I can't see it on my screen, but there's something you press basically. And now I have a member, I need to make sure that I kind of make sure it's worthwhile. Matt saying he would highly recommend the Siege Studios painting course. Yeah, I've heard they're really good as well. I mean, I think where I've always been confused about and what I need to understand is whether they're kind of right for me for the level I'm at. I'm not looking for anything too advanced yet, and I almost need somebody to sit with me and go, yeah, that course will be all right for you. Johnny saying he'll hang on, he's downloaded the rules, just ordered the hard copy. Yeah, they're coming soon, mate. Christian is saying to Skullmunch, I think membership's done through the main page. It's a recurring monthly payment. Yeah, it's like I say, it's a bit like Twitch when you subscribe to a thing on Twitch. What you'll see now is because Kirill has commented, thank you, Kirill. I don't know whether you can see it, but I can see his name is a different colour to everybody else's. I don't know whether you folks can see it. And you'll also see that he also has the little BlackJack Legacy symbol next to his name now as well. So the longer you subscribe, I think as a member, that symbol will change colour. So once you're over so many times, it ends up going gold eventually. That's the way I've kind of set it up. But I'm only just getting my head around all this new stuff. Peter says, do members get free wine? Only if you want to come round and join the live stream, that's for sure. Flying Mama says, if it's an icon of your face, we would all join now. That can be arranged. Horrid person says, I read rules, but I'm discriminating about what I actually play until I wait on the zeitgeist of my group to commit. Yeah, I know that feeling, mate. You need a kind of you need a nucleus, don't you? You definitely need a nucleus with it. Horrid person, Gene is saying, Ian is just saying there as well, phased out a bit, everyone's talking about members, the mind boggles. Yeah, if you just joined the chat now, yeah, we're chatting members tonight. And Adam says, Gene is saying, I like to see what rules do, seeing how others translate action into play on the table. I prefer story-driven systems. What I'll say is, so we've just kicked on to past. We've got 31 people, and normally I end the chat here, but I'm quite enjoying this chat, and it's still flowing quite well. Do people want to crack on for like another sort of 10-15 minutes? Would you like that? Let me know in the chat if you want me to crack on for a little bit longer, because I'm quite enjoying it, and I've still got my drink left. So, and the chat seems to be flowing. There's still enough of you in to kind of make it worthwhile. Keep going. Adam says they're donating to pay for all the free wine. Yeah, I'm going to need more donations if that's the case. And Hal says, because you're you, buddy, love the show. That's really kind, Hal. It's got like, it's just really funny. I've had a bit of a funny day today because I made some comments on my Facebook group today that a lot of people agreed with, but some people didn't. And when you're kind of on your own on a channel like this, it's kind of weird because there's nobody to really kind of talk these things through with to say, are you doing the right thing? Are you doing something wrong? So when you get any kind of reaction, you have to kind of balance it out. I've got to not get swung too far if people have like sort of negativity towards what I do. But by balance, I also have to get sort of swung not too far to the positive side and get wrapped up in all the nice things people say as well. So it can be a real kind of up and down roller coaster ride. So when people do really nice things like that, it knocks me off my stride a little bit, but massively appreciated. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I was just kind of thanks very much. Kirill with his awesome new green name and an icon there says, anyone knows something about integration, Mantic new RPG with Vanguard and Kings of War? It sounds like something new to war games. So from what I understand, Kirill, is what they're going to do is it's going to be set up so you can advance the story within the RPG to a point where there's a battle, and then you can go and play that battle, and then the outcome of the battle will influence the story when you come back to the RPG. So for example, if you're a kind of a goblin leader and you're leading your troops into battle or whatever through your RPG story, or maybe you're part of a Vanguard unit that's trying to find some kind of plans, you'll go off and you'll play the little Vanguard game, and whether you capture the plans or not will come back into your RPG story. It can be played as a standalone RPG, but I think it's really cool the way they're trying to kind of integrate that in. Horrid Gene there saying, I only play with my own models and they have to be painted. that's what's stopping me, buddy. When I played Lord of the Rings at the weekend with Jason, we played just with grey models, grey plastic. And part of me died inside a little bit because I only really play with painted stuff as well, but I was so keen to get a game in, and because there was just the kind of two of us playing, we just cracked on with it. But I had started kind of doing my bases and stuff already. I couldn't just kind of plunk them in the bases and put them on the table. I had all the sand and rocks and stuff put on as well. Steve says, if you're down Bristol way for an event, you can borrow one of mine. I have plenty. It's very kind of you, Steve. I might yet take you up on that. Al says, you've not thought about this member thing, mate, have you? Send the lad a signed photo for being the first. Nobody wants a signed photo, mate, to be honest. Nobody wants that. I haven't really given it much thought because, one, it's relatively new, and two, I never assumed anybody would do it. So I'm blown away by it. Thank you very much. Artie said, oh my God, Krill has a green name tag. I want membership now. Shh. It's a one-person club at the minute. It's the most exclusive club, the most exclusive club on YouTube. Skullmunch says, I am on the Android app, doesn't have the option for joining. That's quite interesting. I haven't got anything Android, I won't be able to check. Flying Mama says, concede the icon, cool. Raw's back. I'll tell you what you missed, Raw. We've been talking a lot about members because Krill is now the first member on YouTube. So congratulations in that one. My phone is lighting up here at the minute, so it's going a little bit nuts because I think the crowdfunder Kickstarter has just launched this evening. So Riverhorse Games have got a Kickstarter which started for the crowdfunder game, and in that crowdfunder game is the artistic version of me. So I'm going to be in a game. I'm absolutely blown away by that. If you check out the Facebook group, you'll see the first version of my card. It's been changed since then slightly. I asked to make a couple of tweaks to it, like make me more handsome, that kind of stuff. No, actually, I think all I changed was the YouTube channel name was slightly wrong. And in the picture that I'd drawn, I had my earbud in, my Apple earphones while we were on the live stream. And I just asked if they could take it out because it looked kind of weird on the picture, that was all. I'm not that kind of that vain. But yeah, check that out. There's a link to it on the Facebook group. There's a link to it on Twitter as well if you follow me on Twitter. The chat just went nuts there and jumped ahead. Where are we? Krill saying, cool icon, green name. Thanks, buddy. Someone said, just as you left, Andy gave away free t-shirts. Adam saying, crack on. RT saying, only if we learn how to become members. I need to find out more about that. For anybody that doesn't have access to the link, I do have Patreon. Yeah, Robert said a few more minutes is cool. Steve said he's busy painting. Skullmunch says more Andy. And Raw says just my luck. What you did do, Raw, when you came back, I would normally kind of quit the live streams at 10:30, but let's crack on for a bit longer, eh? Gene says, on with it. Kill it if it farts out. Mark saying, I'm always here till 11 anyway, although the rest of you leave early. Or you always just hang around a bit later. Dice Tail says, initiation ceremony. Flying Mama says, to be honest, we miss you since last weekend. Do you know what it is? I can't believe it's only been like a week ago. It feels like ages. I was just sitting down to start a live stream tonight, and I was thinking, God, this time last week, I was we were going to talk about the weekender and stuff. It was such a cool weekend. It feels like a million years ago, and I miss hanging out with you guys as well. We definitely need to try and sort of arrange more community meetups, even if they're not big events. Like even if we base them around things like UK Games Expo, try and get the more kind of BlackJack meetups sort of during the year. That would be pretty cool. So yeah, I miss you folks too. Matt says, need to add some more models to my April painting pledge. I've finished Wrath already. Matt, how do you paint so fast with your skills, buddy? With your standard as well, I should say. Oh God, the chat's jumping around. We're having a good old chat tonight. Where's it gone? Here we are again. Mark said he's paid, not paying too much rum. You can never have too much rum. In the immortal words of Jack Sparrow there. I'm saying, good show, mate. Laters. Thanks for dropping in, buddy. Tim said he's heard of a Star Wars event where Imperial Assault, Legion, and X-Wing were being played simultaneously. Actions on each board affected the other boards. That sounds really cool. I could kind of get swept up in something like that. Skullmunch says, Andy, you need to see if there's a setting for being able to join on the Android app. Yeah, let me look into it, and I'll try and find out. It's like I say, it's not something I know much about. It's a relatively new thing, so yeah, let me do some digging for you. Mark saying it's him. It sounds amazing. Horrid Person says, I guess there's an exception. If play motivates you to paint, that's cool. I'm willing to play with someone who's partially painted stuff as long as they're progressing towards a painted force. Yeah, I think by the time we play again, I'll certainly have some stuff done. Ian says, on PC, can't see any member options. I don't know where it'll be then. I've seen it somewhere. Let me have a quick look on my phone and see if it's and see where it is, because I think it definitely is a relatively new thing. And I don't know if it'll. I don't know if it shows up on my phone. No, I'm not. I can't see it on my phone. But hey, doesn't mean it's not there. I'll do some digging and I'll find out for the future. And then if anybody's interested, you can kind of look into it. Tim says Mantic seem to be the first company to integrate RPG into tabletop battle, as far as I know. I think there is an Infinity RPG, but I'm not sure how it integrates. There is a War Machine RPG. I think it's called Iron Kingdoms. I don't know how that integrates, or if at all. And I know that the Modifius, who do Fallout, are bringing out an RPG as well, but that one's not out yet. And I don't know if it integrates with the game as well. It sounds like this could be something quite exciting, really. Where are we at? Adam says he's just backed it, mate. Only. Nice one, buddy. You get your own little cardboard version of me. Skullmunch says, Ian, is there a button that says join? That might be it. Join. That's why I couldn't see it. I think that's exactly what it is. And Raw says, I'm on Android, wondered what the join thing was for. Yeah, I think it's just new. Basically that's what it is, yeah. Adam's saying he's backed it. RT saying I'm on iPad, can't see my icon. And Ghost A says, if you get Lord of the Rings movies, I recommend tracking down the Journey books that GW did. You can play through the movies in various scenarios. Starts off small from Fellowship of the Ring. I'll have to look into that. Somebody else told me to look out for. Is it Battle Companies or something as well? Raw says, I'd be well up for a meet. No one I know is into any of this. That's one thing that I find with kind of this kind of stuff, YouTube channels and Facebook communities. It brings together people who would ordinarily just do this solo. It was the reason I started this in the first place. None of my mates were in any of this stuff. Like I didn't really have any kind of close friends who were into gaming. My son had just been born as well. I think he was literally like 6 weeks old or something like that when I started this channel. And I just kind of wasn't getting out and about to game with clubs and stuff. And I started this to kind of almost be part of an online community. Really, it's grown over time, and it's awesome to kind of see people have rallied around it. But yeah, that's the whole point of this. So that if you haven't got access to a club or you haven't got access to friends who play, this is kind of like, this is your friendship group, and like almost to kind of get involved. Steve says, get Matt to paint you an army. I couldn't afford Matt, to be honest. Ruth saying, Sean, I think he banned us. Other channels have a join button. Only one. Yeah, it was a one-off pledge level. And Fly Marvel saying to Raw, see you there. Al says, GW will definitely integrate Kill Team with 40k games in the future. Be pretty epic, I reckon. It'll be interesting to see if they do that with Warcry as well. Skullman says, Battle Companies has been updated for the new edition, so hold off. I will do. Thanks for the tip. Al said, I also have zero friends who play games or even build models. Real issue when it comes to learning to play. And that's kind of my experience as well, really. I mean, even to the point though, even though I do this YouTube channel and I've got sort of, how many subscribers? Let's have a look. I lost a few today, let's be honest. I've got just under 4,400 subscribers now. I haven't told anybody really that I do this. So none of my work colleagues know about it. My family know, kind of like obviously like my wife and my wife's family and stuff, and like my dad and my sister know. But I've never told anybody else. I don't really tell anybody about it. So it's quite like it's kind of weird that, you know, you get all this interaction and people giving donations because they think I'm kind of doing a good job and all this kind of stuff. And really, it's all still a big secret. One day everybody will find out. If I told them all, maybe I'd get some more subscribers, but who knows? But yeah, so I lost a few today. However, what I will say is the people that decided to unsubscribe from the channel today were obviously disappointed by the fact that I've changed some of the Facebook rules to stop people posting YouTube videos in the group. And the reason I did that was it was just getting a bit clogged up with people just dropping in and sharing the video and then not really contributing, and that's not what the group's about. So if they've taken a little bit of huff over that and they've decided to unsubscribe, I'm assuming they weren't really watching my videos anyway, so it's no real big loss, but it's never nice to go backwards. It's never nice to take a step back. And Al's saying snap mate as well. Yeah, it's definitely like it's much more kind of acceptable now to be into gaming and board gaming and all that kind of stuff than it probably used to be. It's definitely, we're going through a bit of an upward trend, I think. It's becoming a bit more mainstream and a bit cooler. But yeah, I don't know what. Maybe it's because it's YouTube and stuff, but I feel kind of like I have a relatively senior job. I think it might make me seem a little bit weird, like if I tell them all that I spend my evenings like sort of making YouTube videos and editing videos and sitting on a live stream. It's almost come out a couple of times by accident. So we have a lot of kind of like web conferences and like online conferences and online meetings, and the technology we have at work is awful. And they were saying, oh well, you know, we're trying to do this over Skype. It's this, it's something else. And I almost said, I bloody live stream across the world on a Monday night to like 40 people, and you can't even get the Skype working for a meeting. That almost slipped out a couple of times. Flying Mama says their loss. Yep, definitely Robert as well. Yeah. Hey, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, as they say. Raw says I get a look when I tell people they aren't cool enough to get it. That's exactly it. We're the cool kids. They're not cool enough to get it, that's for sure. Peter says, I, for one, am glad you did some unclogging to your group. I would say the response has certainly been, on the whole, like 99% positive. People have either kind of wanted me to do it, or they kind of fully understand what I'm trying to do. And it was a really hard thing to do, because certainly people helped me out when I first started, and it's one of the reasons I've left it go as long as it has, really, is because I want to help other people as well. But the point I was trying to make is that basically if you just drop into the group and dump a link to a video and then never interact with anybody, nobody watches that video, nobody views it. And I see it, if I share my video in another group where I have no interaction, nobody knows who I am, I'm just another one of those faces where I jump in and I drop my video off. And it doesn't work. It doesn't get you any views. You can go into the analytics behind YouTube and it tells you exactly where your views are coming from. And Facebook basically drives about maybe 1%, 1.5% of my total views. So I got to a point where I just decided I'm not sharing my videos anymore, unless it's something really sort of specific. So if I make a video about the new March to War rules for Walking Dead, I will share it in the Walking Dead group. However, I'm then not going to go and share it in the 40k group and share it in somebody else's Facebook group and everywhere, because nobody's interested. And that's the point I was trying to get across. So that basically, because I do this on my own and I have a limited amount of time, I don't have time to kind of say, oh, well, that one's relevant, or that one's not relevant, or this person interacts with the community so they can share theirs, or this person doesn't. So I just thought it was easier to kind of just have that one blanket rule, really. And I've said I'll review it over time. But yeah, there's a few people who have left the Facebook group, and there's obviously a few people unsubscribed to the channel, but I assume that those people weren't contributing to the group anyway, so they're not going to be a loss from the group, and I'm assuming they weren't watching my videos, so I'm not going to miss those 3 views or whatever I got. Let's have a look. Mark says, opposite of my job, I've told everyone about your channel. That's quite interesting, Mick. Thank you very much. That's the kind of sharing that I like, see? Introducing non-gamers into it. Come and have a look. Come and watch the Mad Ball Geordie talking about games. Adam says, I will actually prefer that, to be honest. Honestly, I don't even need a post telling me to watch your vids. I know where to find your vids. I'm in the group to be part of the community. Yeah, I mean, it's a weird one, really. I mean, I don't take anything for granted. Yes, it's a lot of hard work to kind of build up a community, but it's not hard work now because you folks make it an awesome community and you make it easy now. I'm just trying to keep it that cool place. There's never been a crossword. We've never really had any problems. We can have some really quite sort of open discussions about some tricky topics at times, and it always stays kind of really civil and, like, you know, you might get the odd cheeky comment, but in general, it stays really civil and on topic. I don't see that in other groups. In a lot, there are some obviously, but I don't see it in a lot of other groups. I see infighting and I see bitching and I see people getting banned and people getting kicked out and posts getting taken down. It's an awesome community group, and I love being part of it, and I love the fact that kind of hard work's paid off and it's being created. And I love the fact that I know everybody that's in there chatting. There's very few people who I think, I'm not really sure who that is. I love the fact that there is that community. So it's a really cool place, and I just want to keep it like that. But I can't spend all my time trying to be an admin looking over it all. It kind of runs itself because everybody is respectful of it. Really, that's kind of where I want to get to. Scormon says, yeah, me too. I'm glad you made the change. Now looking through the group to see interesting conversations and cool models and hobbing. That's exactly what I want. My point was basically anybody that's creating YouTube videos will still get their stuff seen. If you post some awesome pictures of the stuff you've been working on, or post a picture of, like, you know, like, or if somebody's asking for some help and you've made a video that shows how to do it, post a link to the video in the comment. If it's helping somebody, I'm just trying to stop that big wall of, like, here's my new video, here's my new video. There's no context to it. There's no story behind it. There's no reason for it to be there. It's just self-promotion kind of thing. And I'm trying to get away from that, really. So, where are we? Gene saying, don't lose sleep over losing. Yeah. It's never nice going backwards, mate, but sometimes you've got to go backwards to go forwards. Adam says, I love chatting about different games in the group and see how other half lives. Yeah, it's almost, you can kind of live them games vicariously. You don't need to play them games to kind of find out how cool you are, if you like. Gene says, when I want adverts, I visit a boost group. Good folks, but so much Kickstarter and promotion. It is very much a kind of a Kickstarter group, that one, isn't it? Yeah. Al says, those people were using your community as a promotional platform without making any contribution. If they get upset about it, they need to get a grip. Couldn't have said it better myself, mate. Flying Mammal says, more room for us weirdos. Yeah, we just need a little bit of elbow room. It was getting a bit crowded in there. Raw says, I need a Facebook account. You do, buddy, you do. Skullman says, I've clicked the bell, so if you upload, I certainly know about it. If you have clicked the bell, and this goes for everybody, actually, if you haven't clicked the bell, please do. If you haven't subscribed for whatever reason, please do. But anybody that does click the bell notification, let me know if you do get notified when my videos go live, because I've got no idea really whether you get notified about everyone. I think if you watch a lot of them, it kind of tells you. But for whatever reason, if you didn't watch them for like 2 or 3 weeks, I think it assumes that you're not interested in it and it stops kind of notifying you. But there was always a lot of chat about YouTube not notifying people even when they'd subscribed and asked to be notified. Peter said, weirdos are cool now. Weirdos have always been cool, buddy. Do you not know that? Flying Mouse says, yes, the cool weirdos. Mark says, April Paint Challenge has been undercoated and before pictures posted. Thanks, buddy. Anybody that is a member of the Facebook group, let me start that again. Anybody that's not a member of the Facebook group, please check the links in the description to every one of my videos. Head across and join the Facebook group. For those that are now in there, April's painting challenge has been uploaded. So yeah, you can either just paint like sort of a small unit for an army or whatever it is, or for a game, 5 models, something like that. That's cool. Or if you want to do the kind of quirky challenge, this month it is all about blood. So if you can paint a model with a little bit of gore on it, it might be a bit of blood splatter onto the kind of like armor. It might be a little bit of kind of blood hanging from a walker's hands or from a walker's mouth. You might want to paint Lucille from The Walking Dead. Here's Negan, the little kind of first player bat. You might want to put a little bit of blood splatter on that. But if anybody wants any tips on how to do the blood, let me know and I'll give you a hand with it. But yeah, just give it a little bit of blood effect, a little bit of gore. Robert says, yep, it's a good group. Love being here. Thanks, buddy. Raw says, intelligent people play games. You're not wrong, man. You're not wrong. Adam says, all right, got to go do some work. Peace out. Raw. Thanks, Adam. Thank you very much, buddy. Enjoy your working day. Raw says, excuse me, says, I get notified. That's cool. Skullmunch says, I get phone notification. Adam says, I get emails and notifications. That's cool, mate. I just wasn't sure whether it worked or not. Adam says, I'm going this time. Al says, we are now a group of weirdos who spent an hour talking about members. We have, and there's still 28 left in the chat. That's awesome. We've been going 2 hours now. We still had a good numbers all night. Christian says, I get email notifications, but they go into the promotions folder, so I don't see them till I open my email. Interesting. I think, is that on Gmail? Is it? I think mine get kind of like sort of tidied away as well randomly. And Fly Mama says, blood all over the hands from sanding a model. Yeah, that counts as well. That definitely counts as well. So, let's have a look what we're doing. So, it's almost 11 o'clock now. We'll start to wrap it up now. Last 5 minutes, I think. And we'll call it a night. It's been an awesome couple of hours, actually. It's flown over. It was a good topic tonight, I think. I think everybody hopefully agrees. Had some really nice donations tonight as well, which is always welcome. Never expected, but always welcome. We found out what members are, so that's something else to kind of check out for. I will do some digging on that and find out exactly what it is and give you kind of a bit more information on that. But yeah, thanks very much. What do people think about having the extra half an hour tonight? Have you enjoyed it? Are you kind of all yawning and waiting to go to bed? Has the hour change in what's it called, daylight savings? Has that really kind of like messed everybody up? Gene is saying it works good. I get notifications when I visit YouTube. Thank you very much. Peter says, use it for this month's challenge. Robert gets notified, and Skullmoy says, hashtag extended top bands. That's what it is. This is like the secret little half-hour club, isn't it? This is like the secret club for people, the cool kids to hang out. Al says, night all, it's been good crack. Skullmoy says, hashtag still sad I'm not a member. I need to understand more about that, buddy. Flymore says, think you can change that within Gmail settings, Christian. Yeah, you probably can, actually. Flying Mama says, amazing, every week, please. Oh, every week. I need to think about that. It depends. I think I mentioned this when we were at the weekend. After I come off these live streams, I'm a little bit kind of wired because I've just been talking non-stop for like an hour and a half and stuff, and I have to kind of wind down a little bit before I go to bed, because if I go straight to bed now, I'm kind of like a little bit wide awake over the whole thing. So I'm not sure I can do it every week, but every now and again, if the chat's going well and the numbers are good, I'll throw in an extra half hour now and again, I think. Especially if people are donating, that's always good encouragement to keep going. RT said, it's been brilliant, thanks buddy. Rose says, I need the extra half hour, I missed most of it. Skullmunch says, can't get enough, Andy. Thank you very much, buddy. Matt says, Manic have just put a Vanguard video, so gonna watch that. Love the extra time here too. Thanks, man. Steve says, been a cracking evening. Thanks, Andy. Gene says, I'm closer to wake up time than bed. Sorry, man. Mark says, always enjoy the chat, working, so can't chat myself that much. I didn't realise you at work, buddy. Flying Mama says, every night then. Shall I just turn the channel into just like a live stream every night? Will that be easier? Mark says to Matt, see you in there. And Robert says, love the chat, even if I don't see a lot. To be honest, there's always people who just have this on in the background, kind of as a bit of painting noise, almost like a podcast type thing. Because there's always more people viewing than there is chatting. But that's never a bad thing. All I would say is there is 28 of you in the chat now. However, the video has only had 20 thumbs up. If you have enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps get the word out. And share the love. If you've enjoyed it, come back and comment on the video in the comments and tell everybody you enjoyed the chat. And let me know what you'd like to chat about on next week's video. So, I think with that, we'll call it a night. Thanks everybody for your participation tonight. Thanks everybody that donated, and also my one member, that sounds wrong, my member tonight, Kirill. Thank you very much, buddy. And I will see you all in the next videos. Thanks for watching.